So good morning, everyone. We are back to In the Greater World. Today, we are going to discuss the next to last chapter, chapter 19. Before we start, because this chapter is a continuation of the chapter we studied last month, which was an old affection, chapter 18, where Andre Luiz still with visiting the lower zones, the door to the caverns, as Sister Cipriana went down there. They meet a group of old men, and amongst these old men, one that talks makes an impression on Andre Luiz. He recognizes the voice. He gets a little bit disturbed to think that this could be the voice of his paternal grandfather, and ends up being his paternal grandfather, who was back in the spiritual world for some time. They say around 40 years. He was with the group, and they were all carrying mud in their hands, thinking that they were in possession of gold. When he opens to receive assistance, Andre Luiz start talking to him, and he first thinks that these are angels coming to talk to him, and he starts talking about what happened to him, that he deviated his half-sister Ismenia from his home when his parents died, and she died in poverty, and he felt he was carrying this guilty. He said that the only person that he cared about and cared for him was his grandson, and Andre Luiz really was shocked, because he remembered his grandfather, and he remembered the story of his grandfather, who was mentally disturbed close to his death, but was always very kind to him, and left the family some financial heritage that Andre Luiz used to study, to go to college and get his medical degree. He said that the family didn't really make very good use of the money, and but they were able to separate his grandfather Claudio from the rest of the group. The rest of the group didn't recognize that something was happening there, and they started. Then Cipriana comes back from the caverns with the other group, and we are going to see what happens now as they begin to take care of his grandfather Claudio. And if we have some questions related to the previous chapter, we can address it as we go along this chapter. Okay. So who's going to read for us, Zoraida?
Okay. Yes. Okay. Together again. When Cipriana returned with the other friends, she found me drenched in tears as she listened to the extraordinary story about my semi-lucid grandfather. Indicating that she understood, she said benevolently, "Andre, I knew there had to be a purpose for your coming here." I took a few minutes to describe the incident, providing her with all the information about the past. The director calmly pondered my revisit to the past and then replied, "We don't have much time, and since he's too sick to come with us, we'll have to intern him nearby." In spite of his joy at having recognized me, my grandfather was far from coherent. He spoke in rambling sentences and kept repeating Ismenia's name. "We mustn't forget," the venerable instructor pointed out, that Brother Claudio needs treatment and care. It's impossible to tell when he'll be able to breathe a more elevated atmosphere. That said, she examined the half-mad old man with maternal care. After a few moments, she said, "See, Andre, for our patient to improve more quickly and efficiently, he needs to return to the corporeal existence." Then, in that case, I asked humbly, "Can we count on your help, sister?" Of course, since it will be a reincarnation merely for repertorial activities and with no involvement in communal interests, our personal cooperation can be more decisive and immediate. There are many benefactors in this area who provide for a large number of reincarnations in regenerative circles. Let's see if we can examine our brother's future situation.
Okay. So some notes here that are important to call your attention. First, she says that, Andrea, I knew there had to be a purpose for you coming here, and of course, Andre Luiz was not there by chance. We have to remember what we always say, that when we open to receive the assistance is always there. So the superior spirits that were guiding and directing Andre Luiz studies knew that Claudio was prepared to be assisted, and the best possible assistance that he could receive at that time was the presence of Andre Luiz. Many times in our mediumship meetings, we are talking with spirits that seems impervious to anything that we say, and then the presence of an old affection, a loved one, is what breaks them, what makes them open to recognize their problems and to receive the assistance. So Andre Luiz is here because the superior spirits knew that it was the best way for Claudio, as he's prepared to receive the assistance, to have Andre Luiz close to him, so he would recognize and his debt with the past and prepare himself for the start of a new journey. Cipriana tells Andre Luiz, we don't have much time. Since he's too sick to come with us, we have to intern him nearby. What does this mean? Well, remember, they are in the lower zones. They are in a very dark places. We talked about this, that the spirits that are at that area are spirits that used their incarnation to deliberately harm others, meaning to deliberately take advantage of things for themselves and do not have any care for others in a general sense. Of course, you know, all the criminals they will have their affections that they will try to take care, but most of all, they live and work in a selfish way without any care for others. So this is it's not a lower zones in the sense that spirits that are there, they are selfish, but they are not deliberately harming others. These are spirits that only thought about themselves and are caused harm to others during their incarnation. So he cannot be moved to a more elevated spiritual place because he's too sick. Sick here is mentally. So, but of course, we know, and we study this through Andre Luiz collection, that everywhere in the lower zones, there are the houses of assistance that we have visited in a couple of Andre Luiz books. We saw one in the workers of eternal life. We saw one in the messengers, that they are these houses of assistance, these transitory houses of assistance in the lower zones that rescue spirits nearby and take care of them to prepare them for either moving them up or a new reincarnation. Cipriana says that Claudio needs treatment and care, and that's impossible to tell when he'll be able to breathe a more elevated atmosphere. He's so used and he has lived so long in that atmosphere, in that region, that it will take some time for him to be able to be moved to a better place. Remember the phrase, too much light can blind the person. It's the same thing here. He's not prepared to more elevated vibrations. He's only able to breathe where his mental vibrations make him stay in that region that he is. So what she says is that Andre, what he needs is a reincarnation. To improve more quickly and efficiently, he needs to return to the corporeal existence. Why is she saying that? Because at the situation that he is, he has no chance of achieving any progress in the spiritual world at his stage of evolution. He needs to come to a new reincarnation. With the struggles of the new reincarnation, he will be able, if he, of course, respecting his free will, if he endures the situation, he'll be able to evolve a little bit and to find himself in a better place. And one thing very interesting that she says here, since it will be a reincarnation merely for reparatory activity with no involvement in communal interests, we can do it here ourselves. What does she mean by that? He is in no condition of being of assistance to others in his new reincarnation. He needs to work on himself and those close to him. So he needs to work on improving himself. So it's a very simple case of reincarnation. And simple cases of reincarnation do not really need the department of reincarnation, as we saw in the book Missionaries of the Light. This group of people of spirits that work in this transitory house of assistance where he will be put are able to prepare him for a new incarnation without any additional issues. So a lot of good information in this one page that we have here that talks about the situation of spirits in the lower zones and the conditions where they are rescued and assisted. Okay. Questions here, Luis?
Johnny, I have a minor point on translation and actually a question. Maybe I should start with a question. We know that for a few, if not more, 100 years, we have been having support in the form of Nosso Lar and other communities and points of assistance in the umbral, high, low, medium, etc. We know this is something under development. And as far as I understand, I only have seen references to them in, Brazil, North America, in a few places. And you said something that I find very interesting, that there are many points of support for errant spirits in the umbral. Question is, do you have any reference indication that in other parts of the world, let's say Middle East, let's say China, there is the same sort of support in the umbral for ethereal spirits.
In terms of
errant spirits.
Errant spirits, yeah. In terms of literature, on the top of my head, I don't know. I know the book Heaven and Hell by Emanuel Swedenborg that talks a little bit about the spiritual colony. I know the work, I think Andrew Jackson Davis here in the US talks about the spiritual colony. Yeah. But I don't know of any other work. But the works of Andre Luiz and the works of Francisco Xavier makes us believe and conclude that this happens everywhere, right? That it wouldn't make sense that it will be exclusively here in the US or in Brazil, but it doesn't make any sense. The assistance is present everywhere. What type of assistance and how does it work in terms of spiritual knowledge, teachings, and overall, you know, now that I'm talking, I'm thinking about the book of Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, the transitory. How is it called, Elmo?
Transição planetária, the deal with the tsunami in Thailand.
Yes, that talks about the rescue of the tsunami in Thailand.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, that's it just came to me now. Transitory, no, how is it called?
Transição planetária, no?
Yeah, planetary transition. It's in English. It's translated and published.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that talks about the rescue, the rescue on the tsunami. So it talks about the spiritual work in Thailand. So, but I'm curious, where is the problem with the translation, Luis?
Just a second. Could you move up?
This one.
Yeah, I do not disagree with your comments. I'm just pointing out a translation issue. The phrase that Cipriana said in Portuguese, translated in a more literal way, in my opinion, is saying, I knew, Andre, that you would not have come for no result.
Yeah. For no reason,
for no result, not reason, result. So I believe there's a subtle difference in meaning from I knew there had to be a purpose. Okay?
Yeah. I'm looking at the Portuguese also. Yeah, que não terias vindo para nenhum resultado. Yes, I agree. It's a little bit different. But
just trying to help.
Yeah, she tells him that there is that he's there because there is something to come out of. You know, it's not completely wrong, the translation, and actually what I said doesn't change anything. Yes, but I agree that the translation is not exactly what it says in the original. It doesn't say purpose in the original. The word purpose it's not in the original. But yeah. Anyone else? Any other questions? I think that there's a lot of information in this one page.
It's very rich.
I have a question.
Sure, Paco, go ahead.
Okay, does it mean that only on Earth is the improvement rather far more quickly and efficient than in the spiritual world?
In certain cases, we have to, as we study reincarnation and the process of our evolutionary path, we learn, for instance, that when we are in the primitive state, our time in the spiritual world is very short. We come in a successive series of reincarnations because we have no ability to learn in the spiritual world. We only learn when we are incarnated. And we have short lives here and short periods in the spiritual world. And as we become more knowledgeable and more evolved morally and intellectually, we can start to take advantage of our time in the spiritual world to learn and evolve. So you see how much Andre Luiz is learning and evolving in the spiritual world. What I said is, at the stage that Claudio is, that he's consumed with this sensation first of material attachment to possessions, the gold that he would think he was carrying, combined with the guilty that he's carrying for having hurt his half-sister Ismenia, he's in no condition of progressing in the spiritual world. Because in order for you to progress in the spiritual world, to have some intellectual and moral achievements, you have to be open to receive the assistance and to open to go to places that you can receive. You know, you go to classes, you go to what Andre Luiz is doing, and you, by the description of his state of mind, you see that there is nothing that in the spiritual world for him at the moment. That a new incarnation, a reincarnation, is the best way for him to struggle with his challenge.
God, very, very good. That means that, does it mean then the
challenges,
physical,
and we'll see in this chapter.
yeah, it means that you need a foundational basis before you start really progressing in the spiritual world. Otherwise, the advancement is far more efficient and quickly on the physical plane.
Yes, exactly.
Once you achieve that, I guess, a threshold, then the progress and development is probably faster in the spiritual world.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Now we have to understand that there are spirits that will stay for a long time in the spiritual world, in terms of the obsessors and those problematic spirits, and we are going to study in our next book a case of one of the leaders of the lower zones that used to be a former Pope, Gregorio. So we're going to see different cases, but what we're talking about,
with some caveats, caveat here and there, but generally speaking, you understand.
Yeah. So yeah, but in his case, that he's not, he's not obsessing anyone. He's not. He's just immersed in his own world and his own problems. The best way for him is a reincarnation. Is the best way to address his issues.
Yeah.
Elmo.
Yeah, this is a very rich, whatever, 3 or 4 paragraphs. Oh my God, you can spend hours on talking about this. We see here the objective of the work. Although Andre Luiz is there, likely the leadership of this group knew that Andre Luiz would find Claudio over there. Once they find him, they are very sure to separate Andre Luiz's relationship from the grandfather when she says, Andre Luiz, for our patient. You see, now Claudio becomes the patient. It's no longer the grandfather. It's someone who needs assistance as a patient. That's very, very important for us to reflect how to detach ourselves emotionally when you need to assist someone.
Very good. Yeah.
And another important point Ron already mentioned, with no involvement in communal interest, also reaffirms that. João explained one part of the significance of the statement, but also that if they were somehow to be involved in that reincarnation, being a part of the group reincarnating together or anything like that, they could not assist him because they will be biased, because they would have some personal objectives that would disqualify them as being part of the group who would prepare that reincarnation for him.
Yes. Thank you.
So
Yeah. Go ahead, Philip.
So in the involvement in communal activities referring to the group in the lower zone?
No, it's involved to the patient there, and that group that is present over there going to help him.
I'm not sure I understand. The group of people who are traveling through the lower zone, looking at these patients?
No. He's talking here about in his new reincarnation, he will have no involvement in communal interest. It means that his work that he has to do on the new incarnation is for himself. He needs to deal with his own issues. He's in no conditions of being of service to the community surrounding him. Doesn't prevent him. Of course, we can go through big changes, and suddenly he decides during his new reincarnation that he needs to be involved in community, in helping the community that he lives on. He can change, but it's not in his reincarnation plan, let's say, the word that Julio hates, but it's not in his reincarnation plan that he would be working for the community. He needs to work. He has so many issues himself that he needs to work to improve himself before he can help others. Remember what we always say here: you cannot help others before you help yourself. If you are in no good conditions yourself, mentally, physically, you cannot be of assistance to others, because first you have to take care of yourself. And that's what they're meaning here, that because his new reincarnation, he has to work on himself. There is no needs for a larger group of spirits that are going to be involved in this with him. Then it's simple that they can work from there. And besides, that's exactly what Elmo said, right? That there is no personal, there is nothing really personal there that is going to affect the plan, right? Like when Elmo says, right, the surgeon cannot operate on their own family because of emotional attachments, involvement. So that's what they are saying here, that you have to detach yourself from the planification to be able to get a better result, right?
Thank you.
Yes, Carol.
Maybe if you could clarify a bit, would that mean he would be in a more neutral environment, not including his former family members? Communal?
On the contrary, he'll be directly involved. Yes, and you are going to see later in the chapter. We have to be involved with our directly with our problems, right? But the thing is, he's going to be directly involved in this case with his mania. But again, he's going to have to address the issue himself. It's not it's him and his the few people that he's involved with, right? It's not a broader spiritual family, let's say. It's very specific to the recent issues that he faced, the problem he caused.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you so much, John. Thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify, so let's assume that I discarnate, end up in the spiritual world, and with the plan I had for the growth, let's say, of my mother and myself, in the next my mother's and my next reincarnation, I would be my mother's husband. Okay, that is the projected plan, of course, not written in stone. If that would be the plan, that would be the best for us. I would not be directly involved in my mother's reincarnation plan because I'm an integral part of it. So I should not be directly taking part in that plan. Although I will be one person there, but when it's time to the preparation, formulating that plan, if I'm making decisions on that plan, I'm become biased, and I may don't do the best because I'm directly involved, indirectly emotionally involved with it. Does it make sense? Then I should step aside from the team who was preparing that plan and not be a part of it. But in this case, since Andre Luiz will not be a component, at least an incarnation of that next reincarnation, none of those people, they can be a part of that team who is making that plan.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll see that later in the chapter. We will see what happens in the reincarnation. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Elmo. Great.
João and Elmo, this is Raquel. But did he showed any kind of resentment to be helped, or he was helped just because he was the grandfather of Andre Luiz?
No,
he's being helped because he's ready to be helped. Period.
Yeah, and he showed in chapter 18, the previous chapter, Andre Luiz recognizes his voice when he starts doubting what they were doing. Him and the group of old men there carrying the mud, thinking that's gold. He starts questioning if they were doing the right thing, if they were not. You can check on the chapter there if they were not. I don't know. He doesn't say crazy, or they were not with men. I don't know, questioning. So when he questions is when the Andre Luiz mentor there said he's ready. Let's present ourselves to him. So if he continued with his closeness to any external assistance, nothing would have changed. The fact that he opened himself to doubt is already enough for the assistance to come, right? And if you go to Andre Luiz in Nosso Lar, in the first book, in the lower zones, you see that exactly the same happens on Andre Luiz. Andre Luiz spends 8 years in the lower zones, and then he starts praying because he doesn't know what else to do. He gets tired and starts praying, and that is enough to open himself for assistance. So the same thing in a different way happened to his grandfather. He started doubting himself. He started questioning if what he was doing was right, and that's enough to open the door for the assistance.
Okay.
And so much so that only him was able to notice the presence of those more evolved spirits over there, which showed that he was the only one between those three of them together that was really ready to start the process.
Yeah, the others, they mentioned that the others look at him as he was out of his mind. The others couldn't see Andre Luiz and forgot the name of the mentor now. So yeah, it's interesting, right? Sometimes you have one page with so much information, so much to discuss here, and we covered a little bit, but we could discuss a lot more here. But anyone else? Any questions? Otherwise, we continue here. Okay, Zoraida.
Okay.
She submitted.
She submitted the sick man to a gentle inquiry. In an emotional tone, the old man explained that when his father got married, he brought with him from his turbulent youth a daughter whom his mother had welcomed kindly. Later, this sister had been Claudio's devoted nanny, becoming a creditor of his gratitude. However, when his parents died from a malignant fever, he became blind by the desire to possess money in excess, and thus stripped her of her inheritance the day before his marriage, robbed of her assets, and after much weeping and complaining in vain, Ismenia was forced to work in a home of a wealthy family who gave her a job as a kitchen maid, earning a pitiful wage. He later learned that, pressured by material difficulties of all kinds, she had married an illiterate, rude, and cruel man who physically abused her, and that she had had a few daughters in a dire condition of poverty. After exposing this major deviation from his path, Claudio shook our hearts as he continued listing the unworthy ideas that he had nurtured in the grips of avarice. Showing me that she was used to problems of this nature, Cipriana explained, we have identified two essential points for the work ahead of him. One is the need to reestablish a relationship with Ismenia, but we don't know where she is and whether she is incarnate or not. The other is the imperative of extreme poverty with hard work so that he can re-educate his aspirations. With the likely address of the mistreated sister's descendants in hand, Cimbriana ordered two of our companions to conduct a quick investigation on the earth in order to provide us a course of action in this unexpected turn of events. The emissaries were gone only about 90 minutes. They had some great news which comforted me. They had located the family the unhappy old man had referred to in his anguished reminiscing. As for Ismenia, the friends from our realm explained that she had indeed reincarnated and was in the juvenile phrase of her new body. She had been reborn into the same family for whom she had worked when my grandfather had kicked her out. Cibriana was very excited upon hearing this, and showing further interest in our case, she suggested that we immediately begin laying the groundwork for the future by winning the girls' sympathies. By then, we were inside an aid organization, which responded very favorably to our director's request on behalf of the sick man. Focusing all her attention on my old creditor, the esteemed benefactor told me, our friend won't be able to leave this place of fraternal assistance for about 2 years because he is deeply attuned to the outside atmosphere of the lower zone. We will visit him often and give him the support of our resources until he can once again breathe the air of earth. His mind cannot easily free itself from its web of incomprehension, and in such a state, he won't return successfully to the physical learning experience. I accepted her suggestion following the steps recommended for the case.
Okay.
Wow, okay, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So first, he tells his story, what he did. So he had this, his father had a daughter from a previous relationship that he brings to his marriage to Claudio's mother. And this half-sister was Claudio's nanny and took care of him. But when his parents died of a fever, he immediately expelled her from the house and took sole possession of what their parents have, what his parents have left them. So, you know, she was forced to work in a home of a wealthy family. She worked as a maid. She ended up marrying a cruel man that abused her. And of course, everything that he's saying, he knew when he was incarnated. How could he know all this if you know, if he's telling the story? And that is the guilty that he carries. And it's interesting that he never revealed this, because Andre Luiz in the previous chapter, when he first talks about his mania, Andre Luiz has no idea who he's talking about. So he didn't tell his son and his family about this case of his mania. They never heard of her, but Claudio carried with him in his mind the guilty. And then you say that Cipriana immediately says, and that's answering your question, Carol, that you need to reestablish a relationship with his mania. So the problem he carries is with his mania. So he has to immediately reestablish the connection with her. Now, one thing here that it's not said, but we can raise is mania did not become an obsessor to Claudio, which is very interesting, because in this case, it's very easy that she could become an obsessor, right? When she died, because everything that happened in her life was a result of Claudio's action. But there is no mention here of her becoming an obsessor, and by what we are going to see later in the chapter, we'll continue to conclude that she was never obsessed him, which could be, but he didn't need her to obsess him. He obsessed himself. It was a self-obsession with guilty for what he had done. The next interesting thing is that Cipriana has no idea where she is. Doesn't know she's incarnate or not. So again, sometimes we think that the more evolved spirits have the ability to know everything at all times. No, we don't. Even a more evolved spirit. So, you know, we have our own concerns, immediate concerns, and we are focused on our work. We don't know where everybody is at any given moment in time. So what she does is she asks two spirits that are working there to go and find out what's going on with Ismenia. And they even said it took them around 90 minutes. And we can start speculating here. What did they do with these 90 minutes? Where did they go? Well, again, spirits travel at this level with the speed of thought. They would go to a place in the spiritual world that have the records related to this case. And they will find out the records of where is Ismenia, and then they will go to the place where she is just to make sure that the records and everything that they found out is really what's going on. So all this takes 90 minutes. They go there, they find Ismenia, they come back, then bring the news that she was reincarnated, and again. After Claudio expelled her, she worked for a family. So the rest of her life was related to the family that she worked there. And of course, she's reincarnated in the descendants of the same family, because of course she has other readjustments to make her with the family and the family with her. So that's where we will find her reincarnated in the same family that she had worked, where her grandfather kicked her out. Then Cipriana said, well, great, we can start working on this. but she says he won't be able to leave this place of fraternal assistance for about 2 years. So remember that he's in this transitory house and he's going to receive treatment and assistance. And if you want more information, I don't know if you lost a little bit of what I said here, because I'm seeing that my connection is unstable.
Yeah.
So they are all in this place, in this transitory house of assistance. They are, he has to stay there for 2 years, where he will receive assistance in order to prepare him for a new incarnation. The state that he is in no condition of going to a new reincarnation. And what does this mean, no condition? If he's placed in a new reincarnation immediately, there's very likely that the process wouldn't be completed. You may find problems with the pregnancy, his rejection, the mother rejection. So they need 2 years that he'll stay there. What he's going to be doing for 2 years? A lot of time he'll be sleeping. A lot of time he'll be receiving treatment, spiritual assistance, and like a patient in a hospital that has no condition of leaving the hospital bed and receives treatment for any specific injury that the patient or sickness, that illness that the patient has, and has to stay in the hospital. We can think of something very similar. He has to stay there for 2 years so he can receive the assistance needed and be prepared for a new reincarnation. She says here, his mind cannot easily free itself from its web of incomprehension. And in such a state, he wouldn't return successfully to the physical learning experience. So he needs to receive treatment and assistance to prepare himself to come to a new incarnation in a better state of mind. Okay? So Andre Luiz finally says, okay, he accepted her suggestion. Of course he would. He had no knowledge and other options, and follow the steps of the case. Okay, some good information here, right? Any questions related to this part? Comments? Elmo?
No, I think you covered everything there. I have nothing to add.
Okay. So I have a question here. Can I understand the reincarnation plan as a to-do list of points to work to evolve in an environment that will make possible for us to apply our free will to take the right actions and thoughts to complete our to-do list and follow the path of a spiritual evolution? Yes, the reincarnation plan is the basics that we are supposed to do in our reincarnation, with the challenges and the trials and atonements. We have our free will. We can change it at any time during our reincarnation, but there is a print of what we're supposed to do in our reincarnation. It doesn't mean that we're going to follow it, but our family is part of this plan. The challenges within our family, the loved ones and the difficult ones that we have to work with are part. But of course, as we come here and we forget about everything, we forget everything that we plan. We deviate many times from our plan. And in the book Missionaries of Light, the light, when Andre Luiz is there in the reincarnation department of Nosso Lar, the spirits that he's guiding him tell him that very few of us are completers, what are called the completers, meaning that achieve 100% of what we are supposed to achieve in our reincarnation, that most of us end up achieving 40 to 60% of what we were supposed to do. And the few completers are the ones that are 100% involved on the choices and planification of their new reincarnation. Those that are not completers will have less stay in their new incarnation. So that's, I hope I answered a little bit of your question. Anyone else? Any questions, comments? Okay, so let's move on.
Where are we again?
Cipriana gazed tenderly.
Okay. Cipriana gazed tenderly at the demented man and continued benevolently. Now, Andre, to finish this week's work, let's try to bring Ismenia here for the preparatorial work of bringing them together. Since she is presently in her youth, she'll probably help us at the right time and receive a disturbed brother into her home. But before anything else, we need her sympathy regarding our plans for restoring him. If Ismenia accepts, if she agrees, I added hesitantly, we'll take care of the rest. Cipriana promised decisively. Claudio's return to the physical realm will entail highly personal aspects without major implications for society in general. Thus, we can coordinate most everything ourselves. Entrusting the sick man to the care of the benevolent workers in charge of that house of Christian love, we headed for Rio de Janeiro and found Ismenia in a modest home in the Bangu district. We respectfully entered the modest home at dawn. My grandfather's sister was now the sixth daughter of the woman known in her physical existence as the granddaughter of the former Ismenia, whose personality for her earthly family had been lost in time. To us, however, she was none other than the same child and young girl as before, who had come back for the perfecting endeavor of the corporeal struggle. Everything there breathed of noble poverty and endearing simplicity. Cipriana placed her right hand on the sleeping girl's forehead, as if to call her to us. In fact, a few instants later, she was with us. Seeing our leader enveloped in an intense light as she greeted her with a gesture of blessing, she kneeled down, exclaiming in tears of jubilation, Heavenly Mother, who am I to receive the grace of your wish, of your visit? I am an unworthy servant. She covered her face with her hands, feeling perhaps dazzled by Cipriana's sublime light and barely able to repress the turmoil in her heart. But our venerable benefactor approached, rested her caring hands on her thick black hair, and said compassionately, my daughter, I am only your sister, your friend, but listen, what is your purpose in life? As the girl lifted her tearful eyes, the noble messenger added, we need your help, but we do not want to be useless friends. How can we be of service? Heavy moments of expectation passed. Don't be afraid to speak up, asked Cipriana helpfully. With her voice choking with emotion, she stated with youthful naivety, Mother, if I can ask anything of you, please help Nicanor. We've been engaged for almost 2 years, but we are poor. I earn a small salary working in the textile industry in order to help maintain our home. And Nicanor is a bricklayer. We have been dreaming of having a small, modest home under the watch care of divine providence. Can we hope for God's approval? With an expression of motherly tenderness, Cipriana considered, why not? Your wishes are not just and sanctifying. Nicanor should have our assistance and your hopes, our strong support. However, we need something in turn. Oh, I'm just a lowly servant. How could I serve you? The director didn't prolong the conversation, but stated only, come with us. Then to my,
Okay. So
okay.
Let's see here. What can we say about Ismenia, right? So the first thing Cipriana tells Andre Luiz that they need to bring her to prepare her for the reunion with Claudio. So she needs to overcome even if it's unconscious, the repulse that she has for Claudio, right? Who caused so much harm to her. And of course, for her to receive him, she needs to overcome the differences. She needs to be in a accepting mode. We saw this in Missionaries of the Light, in the reincarnation of Sigismundo, when his father, his soon-to-be father, refused to accept him as a son, and then they had to go there, and during their sleep, the father and the mother, they brought both of them to the spiritual world, and they had a discussion, a conversation to convince his father to accept him as a son, Sigismundo, with a new reincarnation, Missionaries of the Light. So why we're talking so much about Missionaries of the Light today? Because the best description of the whole reincarnation process is found in the book Nosso Lar, Seen from the Spiritual World, is found in the book Nosso Lar, starting on chapter 9 or 10, and the reincarnation of Sigismundo is on chapter 13. It's very important if you want to learn and understand more about the whole process of reincarnation from the spiritual world, the work that is done in the spiritual world. You have to read or reread that book. So here they need to bring Ismenia during her sleep in a dream state, to have a reunion with Claudio to prepare her and prepare him for the future, right? And so Cipriana says we need her sympathy regarding our plans. And again, she says that Claudio's return to the physical realm will entail highly personal aspects without major implications for society in general, meaning his reincarnation is only for him. He's in no condition of being a useful member of society in a sense of helping society. He needs to repair the damage he had done to himself. So that's why Cipriana says we don't really need a reincarnation specialization team. We can do it ourselves here. So next step, they leave the transitory house of assistance, and they go to Rio de Janeiro. Bangu is a district in Rio de Janeiro, for those that don't know, which is a mid-lower class in Rio de Janeiro. And they go to a modest home, and they find Ismenia, who is the sixth daughter of the granddaughter of the former Ismenia. So Ismenia is her own great-granddaughter. We talk a lot about us reincarnating in our own families, and we see here an example that there is a chance that our great-grandparents or great-great-grandparents, if we continue, or great-grand-aunts, uncles, someone in our family, our ancestors, that we are a reincarnation of our ancestors, because we need to continue working in the same group. We always have readjustments in the same family, and we have our loved ones and the ones that we have to readjust close to us. And all of us, we just have to look around in our own families, and we can get to our own conclusions, who are our loved ones and who are the ones that we need to be patient, and we need to work on our relationships because of issues of the past that we better not remember, because if we do remember, it will only cause more harm than good to ourselves and to them. So Cipriana, the girl is sleeping, and when the girl, the very spirit of Ismenia is, and again, she's not really a girl because she's been engaged for 2 years. So it's not, we're not talking about someone that is 14 or 13 years old. We're talking about someone that is probably somewhere around the 20s, a little more, a little less. At that time, to be engaged for 2 years, you probably are around 20 years old or something like that. But when she comes out of her physical body in the dream state, she sees a light, and she thinks that she's in the presence of probably of the mother of Jesus or something, because she talks about who am I to receive the grace of your visit, Heavenly Mother, and she kneels. So she thinks she's in the presence of a spirit of light, in the sense that a saint, that probably she, in her religious beliefs, she thinks she's in the presence of a saint. And then Cipriana says that I'm only your sister, and asks what are her objectives. And then that's when she says that she's engaged to Nicanor, but they are poor, they want to marry, but they don't have enough to get married, and she would like the assistance of the spiritual benefactors to help them so they can get married. And Cipriana tells her, you know, your wishes are just and sanctifying, that they will receive the assistance that she's asking for, in exchange that they need her favor. And she says, but how can I help you? How can I serve you? I'm just a lowly servant. So you see that she's very humble. And the fact that she's very humble is very useful and convenient in terms of her being prepared for what is going to be asked of her, because it's, of course, she's going to be asked, and you see, to receive Claudio as a son, right? You don't need much to deduct this, right? But for her to receive Claudio as a son, she will need to overcome the anger and the resentment that she has towards him, and he needs also to see her. Okay. So, comments, questions here? Okay, the first page had a lot of questions, and then nothing else. Nothing? The story is too interesting. You're all curious to see what happens next?
I have a question.
Okay, Ruth, thanks.
So she has, is in her subconscious that she has this dislike towards her brother in the past life?
Yes, it's in the unconscious, yes. But the unconscious will cause it probably, if she's not prepared, if she gets pregnant with him, it's very likely that she'll have a miscarriage for the rejection on both sides, right? So that's why you need to prepare her, and she needs to accept the responsibility so that she won't reject him unconsciously. So here is what we do many times in our sleeping state. In our dreams, we are taken to the spiritual world to do what is necessary for us in terms of advices, in terms of challenges, in terms of understanding of our duties here in this incarnation. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
But that's an assumption that we are making, because from what you read so far, there is nothing to lead us to believe that she has that negative feeling towards him in her subconscious. I think it's an assumption that we make based in ourselves Most of us would have
Yes.
resentments towards him. But for what you read here, there is not that tell us that that is the case.
Nothing. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
That's true.
You're right, Elmo. It's because I read the rest of the
That's
chapter and
right.
study. I know that's
Yeah.
going to happen. But yes, you are
That's
right.
right.
So far, we have nothing to say. But
That's why I asked. I didn't
Yeah.
get that part either, so that's why I asked that question also.
Yeah, we are going to see in the next part. But thanks, Elmo. Yes, it's important to be here.
Yes.
Yeah, but we'll see why I said that in the next part. But thanks.
Okay,
Okay.
where are we?
But from the Joao, from the get-go, you said that she did not become an obsessor.
Yes.
No, she's, yeah.
Yeah, because
By the fact
because what we are
Wait
reading
for that.
here,
you said,
yeah, because what we are reading here, it shows that she doesn't, the fact that you have resentment doesn't necessarily means that you're going to become an obsessor.
Very important.
You may not like someone, you may feel a resentment towards someone and not become their obsessor because
That's
either
very
you know
important.
better or you either.
but the other way around,
Around.
you need resentment to become an obsessor, but you don't. In order to, you need a resentment to become an obsessor, but resentment doesn't lead to obsession right away.
Right.
Exactly.
An obsession is action, is an active. It's
Exactly.
action towards someone, and negative action towards someone, not just a resentment.
Exactly.
Yeah. And there is nothing here that even you see towards the end, and nothing here that tells us that there is any indication that she became an obsessor to him before the incarnation or here. Okay.
And I mean, we
Okay.
can make a lot of assumptions. There's not reading of it. There's not writing over there, so it's just guesses. And my guess is just as good as my dog's guess here. But she reincarnated much earlier than him, right? Probably there is a reason why it's preventing her to transform the resentment into something worse. But it's just an assumption.
Yeah. Yes, our assumptions are always, of course, are not wild guesses, are always based on our knowledge and understanding of how the process works. But it's still, they are assumptions.
Or our projection.
Could be.
Could be also. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Zoraida.
Okay, so where are we then? Okay.
Then to my great surprise.
Right. Then to my great surprise, Brianna covered Ismenia's face with a thin veil made of substance similar to gauze so that she wouldn't see the sorrowful landscapes that we would be crossing. With our support, the young woman was soon kneeling curiously and emotionally before my grandfather. Upon seeing her, he broke into exclamations filled with anxiety. Ismenia, Ismenia, my sister, forgive me. Tormented, he caressed her hands while gazing at her humble face. Oh, it really is her, he insisted, obviously amazed. She has the same look of grief as on the day I threw her out. But what has she done to look so much younger and more beautiful? Since the visitor remained silent and bewildered, he urged, afflicted, tell me that you forgive me, that you will forget the evil I did to you. At that point of the unexpected meeting, Simbriana intervened and asked her, did you know that your great-grandmother had a brother? The young woman did not let her finish and asked, who threw her out of the house? Yes, my mother once mentioned that distant past, she added sadly. Don't you recognize him? Her benefactor asked warmly, don't you remember? The old man interrupted to refresh her memory. Ismenia, it's me, Claudio. your wrenched brother. The girl didn't know what to make of such words. Cipriana, however, touched her frontal lobe with her hands and enveloped her in abundant magnetic radiations, causing the emergency of memory in the most important paraspiritual centers. She insisted gently, see the past once again, my friend, so that we may better serve the divine work. Astonished, I watched as something extraordinary happened to the young woman's mind. Her previously sweet and peaceful eyes dilated and became troubled. She tried to withdraw before my grandfather's pleading look, but Simbriana's energy stopped her, preventing the expansion of her initial impulses of fear and repulsion. Yes, now I remember, she groaned in horror. Our instructor then released her forehead, and nodding toward the sick man, she asked movingly, and don't you feel my compassion? There were a few tense moments of expectation, love, and however, always divine in women with high aspirations, triumphant in Esmenia's loving gaze. Completely changed, she embraced the sick man, saying, so it is you, Claudio. What happened to you? The old man described his suffering at length, disclosing his past wrongs, and then spoke more lucidly and happily of the comfort that meeting her again had brought him. She held him close for a long time, enabling him to feel her immense tenderness, dedication, and unlimited understanding.
Okay.
Okay.
So the first thing here that is very interesting to note is that they are going to take Ismenia, Cipriana is going to take Ismenia from the house that her physical body is sleeping to the place, the transitory house of assistance where Claudio is resting, is being treated. So where is this? This is in a very deep lower zones. So Cipriana covers her face so she won't see the landscape that they have to go through. Again, at the level of Ismenia, she's not able to travel at the speed of the thought. She needs to be transported. She needs to be carried through the lower zones by Cipriana. So Cipriana takes her through the lower zones to the transitory house of assistance, and that's why she covers her face so she's not able to see the surroundings, because she'll be if she was able to see, she will be extremely impressed, and she would have endless nightmares about what she had seen. So that's why Cipriana prevents her from seeing the surroundings. And then immediately when she's brought into the presence of Claudio, he recognizes her because she resembles her sister. She doesn't remember, but Claudio, by seeing her, immediately recognizes her as his older half-sister that he threw out of the house, and starts, of course, asking for forgiveness. Is the guilty that he has been carrying for so long that comes all flooded him, and he asks for forgiveness. He asks for it's interesting that he finds her more younger and more beautiful, because of course when he threw her out of the house, she was a little bit older than she is now, and she was suffering, and now she's still young. And he asked for forgiveness, and then Ismenia is there looking and not really understanding what's going on. Cipriana has to intervene and ask her first if she remember anything from the past that someone told her, and she said yes, that her mother mentioned in the past. And then Cipriana has to touch her frontal lobe, so allow her to access a previous incarnation that will allow her to remember him. And then when she sees the past, and that's where we discussed before, Paco, Elmo, the fear and repulsion that her initial impulses, so it's there in her subconscious, the repulsion she feels for him, and the fear that that he threw her out of the house. And then, of course, when she accesses her previous incarnation, she remembers, and the immediate reaction is she tries to withdraw. She tries to run away from it. You know, how many times in our dreams we see things we don't like and we try to run away from what we are experiencing in our dreams. And that's exactly what's happening here. She tries to, immediately what she would like to do is to go back to the physical body and wake up. And Cipriana, that controls her, prevents her with her energy for her to act on her impulses of fear and repulsion. And then she remembers, and Cipriana, knowing her and knowing her ability of compassion, asks her if she feels any compassion. Again, knowing that she's capable of doing it does not mean that she's going to feel it. Cipriana is allowing her to, through her free will, to express this compassion, but there is no guarantees there. It's a work that they are trying to do, right? And Cipriana is able, because of who she is, a humble person, and with high aspirations. That's the key word here. Women with high aspirations that triumphed in her thought, and immediately she felt compassion and said, "What happened to you, Claudio, is you," right? And then he tells his story and his suffering and his wrongs. He recognizes his mistakes, and she embraces him with tenderness, with dedication, and with understanding. And for those that work in mediumship meetings, haven't we seen this so many times, right? When the spirit, the suffering spirit, the struggling spirit, the rebellious spirit finally is embraced by the loving one that comes and comes to assist them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Questions, comments here? Paco, are we good now that it was there in the unconscious of her, the repulsion, the fear?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So no one else says anything. Let's finish it. So just the end of the chapter.
Is it?
Last sentence.
When both seemed fully reconciled, Cipriana approached her and considered, "My friend, we would love to hear you promise to help our friend Claudio in the near future. Will you cooperate with us on his behalf and receive him with the selfless arms of a mother if law authorizes your marriage to Nicanor? Displaying the treasures of a simple and humble existence, Ismenia respectfully replied, if heaven grants me the happiness of contributing something on Claudio's behalf, the real benefit will be mine. And if someday I receive the conjugal blessing, he will be our first beloved little son. I know even now that Nicanor will be overjoyed with this, my promise." Gazing blissfully at the wrenched prison of the darkness, she promised, "He will share our poor and honorable life. He will know the joys of earning a living with his sweat and divine watch care. In our company, he will forget the illusions that have separated us for such a long time." Displaying a delightful simplicity of heart, she planned in rapture. He will be a happy bricklayer like Nicole. He will bless the worthy struggle that we presently bless. While we wept emotionally, Cipriana embraced her, also touched. With moist eyes, she assured Ismenia, Blessed are you, dear daughter, for like us, you understand the heavenly ministry of the worthy woman who is always ready for sublime motherhood. A few more moments went by in a wholesome understanding, and as the sun guarded the horizon with diamond-like hues, we were once again in Ismenia's modest room, helping her return to her body and to forget what she had experienced with us in the spirit realm. She woke up in her body feeling an unknown elation. Her mind was refreshed with happy ideas. She had the clear impression of returning from a marvelous excursion, whose details she could not define. Without knowing how, she was absolutely certain that she would marry and that God was holding a happy future for her. Who could describe our appreciation and wonder of those moments? My companions blessed her, and I, with my turn, bid her an emotional farewell, silently kissing her tiny hand in profound friendship and inexpressible gratitude.
So to finalize here, Cipriana asks her to receive Claudio as her son, and Ismenia says that if heaven allows me to help him, I will benefit from it, and that he will be the son, and that they will take care of him and love him, and that Nicanor will be happy with this also, and that he will share their lives, poor and honorable life. Again, it's important here to remember that Claudio needs in this new incarnation to struggle. He won't be able to have any material possessions of any that he can once again abuse. So he will have to struggle for material and basic necessities throughout his life, because he abused of his wealth in the previous incarnation. So the complement, and then you may ask, well, but what happens to his free will? Won't he be able to, through his free will, achieve what he wants? Well, yes, he has the free will, but the struggles surrounding him are also placed in his journey, making things difficult for him. So if he starts succeeding, he'll face struggles that are there for him. And that will be his way of attempting of repairing his issues. Of course, the relationship between him and his mother will be a relationship of, probably, again, assumptions. We have nothing here that says anything about his relationship with his mother, but how would be the relationship? She loving him much, feeling sometimes this strange repulse for some of his actions, not for him, but some acts that some tendencies that he will present will cause her to scare her, and him of her will be a case of loving, respect, and fear that won't be able to explain the fear that is caused by what he did to her, and he will always carry this fear that is unconscious fear that she could reject him in some way because of what he had done to him that he won't remember. Again, assumptions based on the past, but not natural reactions that we have according to those close to us. So she wakes up with an impression of a nice dream that she couldn't remember well, but with a certainty that she would get married and have a happy future. And then, Andre Luiz finishes saying that he was extremely emotional with everything that had happened, and he was very happy with how this have all ended up. Okay, beautiful chapter. Lot of things for us to learn here. A lot of beautiful and instructive lessons. Any questions, comments here? So next month is the last chapter of this book, chapter 20, at Cipriana's home, which is our goodbyes and their goodbyes to everything that we study in this book. And then we, in May, we start the other book, Liberation, which is the next book on the collection.
What's that about?
Liberation is a book that talks about a rescue in the very deep lower zones of one of the main leaders of what you can call hell or the lower zones, which is a former pope called Gregorio, which what I think was Gregory I'm not sure if it was Gregory the IX or something, that became a leader of the lower zones and has a very big army of workers in the lower zone. So it's a mission that they have to go there and rescue him. And it's a very interesting story, very, very interesting book. I was just reading, I was just watching a lecture on the works of Andre Luiz by someone that is a scholar on the books, and she said that her favorite book of the collection is Liberation. It's a very good book. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's really a very interesting
What's your
book.
favorite?
That's a good question.
What's your favorite?
I don't know what's my favorite. I have some of them. In the domain of mediumship is one of my, for sure, it's one of my favorites, probably one of the top.
I thought you would say Missionários da Luz.
Missionaries of the Light is also one that I love, yes. But Missionaries of the Light is because of the reincarnation. But, again, all of them, I love all of them. So it's difficult for me to choose. But, if anyone that I say it's my favorite, it would be a good choice. So let's ask Carol to do our final prayer.
Sure, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Carol, before next Sunday, second Sunday of the month, the Gospel according to Spiritism, okay? We're going to study the Gospel. Ruth, if you want to send your question, Helmo can answer you next Sunday probably, or me, okay?
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, great.
Go ahead, Carol.
Sure, great, thank you. Infinite Creator, Supreme Intelligence, First Cause, we are grateful to be together today for our study in the greater world. We are grateful to have the assistance of the spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the mentors who are with us, guiding us, helping us to have a deeper and broader understanding of the process of reincarnation and the stages in between in the errant state. We are grateful for what we have learned today, what we have shared together through the connectivity in this Zoom presentation. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors who are here, who are present with us, guiding us throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the year. We are grateful for their help and helping us to maintain an elevated consciousness, helping us to aspire to our studies, to have a better understanding, deepening what we have learned, not only in our lessons this week, but throughout the year. May we continue throughout the week with our prayers, with our mindfulness, with our studies. May we be blessed to be able to share this as we can with others as we do our part to do so through discernment. May we continue now throughout the week, and may we continue to receive these blessings of love, light, and inner peace through the auspices of Christ, the loving, loving agent. May we be grateful for what we have received, sharing it with others as we do our part to do so. We close and humbly ask for safety, for inner peace as we go forth to family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. And as we close, we humbly ask to receive the love and light of Christ within, the consciousness that we uphold within. May our hearts be blessed and may our minds remain open. We close now and ask to be beacons of light, going forth as instruments of peace. So be it.